Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about different ways that you can build wealth, gain financial freedom, and gain time freedom as well through different opportunities in real estate. And so today we are going to highlight Zach Pittman, and Zach's going to share his story and kind of his journey through real estate with us. So just a little bit of a background about Zach. Born and raised in North Carolina and attended university in Louisville. I was a student athlete, graduated with a degree in accounting and an MBA. Spent some time doing marketing, advising, and then finally got into real estate. And in 2 years, acquired enough property in 3 states to bring in 6 figures of rental income per year while exploring different strategies in wholesaling, rehab, Section 8 apartments, all-inclusive renting, and subleasing. So Zach's goal is to impact 8 million people around the world by teaching simple real estate strategies through his HomeBuyer League, which we'll talk about. You also are the managing member of GHP Capital, and you've covered a lot. You've covered a lot in real estate, so we will dig into that. So welcome, Zach. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Yes, I appreciate you having me. Thanks for the wonderful intro. I appreciate you doing what you're doing, and I am really excited to get into all of the hot topics today.
And I should add too, Zach, second time dad. We were originally going to record this podcast earlier, and you had to let me know, you know what, as important as this podcast is, having a baby coming is a little bit more important. So congratulations on being a dad, two kids under 2. So you are right in the thick of it.
Oh, yes. Staying very busy.
So Zach, why don't you just go ahead and share a little bit about your background, obviously kind of getting through college, getting into real estate, and bringing you to where we're at today.
Sure. So many of us who have gone to college knows that most of the time college does not prepare you for the real world. And we're taught to go into college and get a good job, get your 401k, save money, have a family, get married, and retire when you're 59 and a half years old. And that's the path I was on. I got the accounting degree and realized about junior year that it was not for me, but I was so deep in, I just wanted to go ahead and finish it. I knew it would be useful in business at least. So I finished it out. And then the MBA program is where things changed for me. That's where I realized I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And from there, that's what I did. I started testing things. And I think a lot of the times we think getting to financial freedom and wealth is just a straight linear upwards trending line. It is not. You're going to go up and come down and go up and come down. I've come down a lot, everything from relationships to businesses failing. I know you mentioned in the intro, I did marketing for a while that succeeded, but a relationship caused me to shut that business down. I was doing marketing for companies all around the world, and unfortunately I had to shut it down. And then from there, I took those marketing concepts and got into investment firm. So I was an investment advisor, helping people to manage their money for retirement. And from there, I kind of realized I didn't agree with using just the stock market as your sole retirement vehicle. And that's when I decided to get into real estate. And since I've been in real estate, it hasn't been too long that I've just been solely investing, but I've seen incredible gains over the period of time. And many would say, well, it's been the hottest market it's been in years, but that doesn't explain the cash flow. You have to be able to manage and find deals. And I bought at the top of the market, but I still found a deal that was not expensive. And so you have to have these strategies in order to make smart, financially literate wealth building decisions. And, that's kind of been my journey. I had to fail a couple times, and then it led me into real estate where I'm now succeeding. And since I've been in it, I've done wholesaling, and I'm a lender. I'm a licensed lender in the Carolinas. And I've done room-to-room renting, subleasing, and also I have an apartment complex in Georgia. So acquiring these units has created enough cash flow. If I was single and did not have kids, technically I could be financially free. But, when you have a family, as you know, you're taking care of other people. That changes, your expenses go up. So if you're young, I highly recommend starting earlier. I wish I would have started earlier, but I'm glad I'm not starting later. Not to say you can't start later when you're more seasoned, but I'm just thankful that I am where I am today. But the strategy that did springboard all of this was the room to room renting strategy.
And two, just for people that are maybe tuning into the episode that have, thought about investing in the stock market in the past, or you do have invested in the stock market, you're kind of considering real estate. I actually had shot a video about this recently, just talking about the jobs that I was applying for right out of college was to become an investment advisor with some local companies. And, kind of the way that they talk about it is, you're saving up for retirement. And a general rule of thumb that a lot of people subscribe to is, you pull out about 4% of what you have once you've kind of got that nest egg set up and ready to go. And you're ready to retire, you pull 4% out. And as healthcare continues to get better, people live longer, there's a legitimate concern of what happens if I outlive all that wealth that I've built. And so stock market certainly can be a good option, and you can use that. The difference here, investing in cash flowing assets, that when you have the cash flow built up, there's not an opportunity where you're going to outlive that money that you saved up. And so I think that's a key for people. If you haven't gotten into investing yet, you're still considering it, you're still kind of waiting to make that first leap. Think about that. Like, what happens if you do outlive that money? What are you going to do? I'd rather put it into cash flowing assets. And not to say, like I said, you can invest in the stock market, maybe you diversify a little bit, but that is the beauty of the cash flow here, is you don't have to worry about outliving the retirement funds that you've worked 40 years to build up.
Right. And I think you said that spot on. I'm not saying not to do the stock market. I do agree you need to diversify.
So kind of talk about the first couple of steps for you, getting that first property or the first couple here. Would love to hear, so many people that are sitting on the sidelines ready to jump in. They're like, how did you do it? How did that get going? How did you build that momentum?
Number one answer I give to someone who asks me, how do I get into real estate investing? The best answer is to buy your own home you are going to live in, because you get the best deals when it comes to loans. There's first-time homebuyer programs. There are 0% down or very little percent down programs to get a home. So you're putting down 0 or 3% on hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most of the time, the average time you're living in that home is 5 years. So you're going to move anyway. But during that time, you're not making someone else rich by paying them rent. You're paying down your mortgage, and real estate appreciates most of the time. So you're making money with equity, which is just the difference between the mortgage you owe and the market value. So you're making money, you're saving money. And what I did is I bought a home, and my mentor told me to rent out my rooms. What he did is he bought a home, rented out the rooms, lived pretty much rent free because they're paying his mortgage. And then he went and bought another home, and he turned the first rental into an investment home. But then he rented out the rooms in his second home. He repeated this strategy 5 times. And he then held the properties for roughly 20 plus years. And then he unloaded all of them at the same time. And he was a millionaire. And he said, it's a very simple formula. I'm not a genius. Anybody can do this. And that's all I needed to hear. So I bought a home. And then what did I do? I actually fixed it up a little bit. So I bought something that needed just a little bit of work, like tearing down popcorn ceilings, painting floors. That's it. And then I rented out both rooms. And I was able to shave off almost all of my student debt. I was able to travel. I was able to pay off my car. All I had to pay was the internet bill and some of the electric bill. That was it. Everything else was pretty much covered. So I highly recommend this strategy to anyone who's just getting started, or if you're younger, can do that. And even if you're not, when I started, after I was doing this strategy, I eventually moved in with my girlfriend, and she had someone renting one of her rooms out. So even though we were living together before we got engaged, we had a roommate. Now, we did have kids, so we don't have a roommate now, and that changed a little bit. But that's not to say you couldn't have a space in your home that you're not long-term renting, but you're using as a short-term rental. You're renting out a bedroom, or you convert your garage and you rent that out for income. Make money off your owned property. And it's a great place to start. Now, from there, you're learning a lot. As the landlord, I've got a story. So when I was doing my first room-to-room renting, I actually had to learn how to do contracts, so leases. So you have to learn how to do leases. You have to learn how to find renters, how to check renters to make sure they have the money, that they have decent credit. I wasn't running credit at the time, to be honest. I was actually getting people off of Craigslist, which it worked out, but people now would look at you sideways if you said you were getting people from Craigslist. But I still get renters off of Facebook. Facebook Marketplace is the number one place I get renters now. So how do you find them? You learn these things along the way. And so one of the stories I have is I actually made a mistake. Some story, they wanted a second chance. I let them move in, and sure enough, they didn't pay rent. I got super lucky because she was like destroying the house, trying to fight the tenants in the house, because eventually I moved out the house and I rented my room out. And so I was doing room to room in my house when I moved with my girlfriend. She was trying to fight the other roommates. She wrecked her car. Her parents called me saying that they were going to cut her off. It was an entire fiasco. Then she gave me some story that she was in the hospital. And the roommates were like, dude, no, she's absolutely not in the hospital. She's trying to play you so she doesn't pay rent. And I was a nice guy, and I never I didn't follow the rules of what you should do as a landlord. I was able to get her out of the house the day before the COVID moratorium went into where you could not evict. And so I got super lucky that I kept pressing her, or else I could have had someone in there for a very, very long time, not paying rent, just creating mayhem. So from there, I learned you've got to be very diligent. You've got to make sure your lease is tight knit. You've got to follow what's in the lease. Do not cut people breaks. I'm sorry, you can ruin yourself and your family. You can go broke. I try to follow everything at least as to the point as possible. So that is something I learned early on, like first year in. Follow the lease, get a you're supposed to do as a landlord. But by renting out your house, you can learn all of this before you turn it into an enterprise that is a legit business. So yeah, that was my journey. Because of all that I learned and I liked that strategy, I took that strategy and I did it first as a sublease, where I rented a property, put furniture in there, stocked the kitchen, and rented that property out room to room. And that's called rental arbitrage, where you rent a property and you re-rent it. You make money based on the extra rent you're charging from all of the rooms minus the utilities you're covering. So you can do it that way. And then I went and bought investment properties and I did the same thing. Rented the rooms out, because what that does, it gets rid of what's called a vacancy rate. So if someone moves out, the rent's still covered, the mortgage is still covered, because I have two other tenants still in the house. You're almost turning a single family home into a multifamily home by doing this. Granted, you're paying utilities and stuff, but you can, and I do make more rent than I would make if it was a traditional rental.
Yeah, there's a lot of gold in what you talked about. I was actually just thinking about a gal that I talked to last week, and her son went to college. And so what she ended up doing is she bought a house near the university, had her son live in it, had his friends live in it for 4 years. And through that time, obviously, we're easily able to pay off the mortgage. And then one turned into another. Well, now she's sitting on 7 houses. And now she's at the age where her kids are old enough. She's looking to retire. And she's like, I've done this for so many years. I've accumulated seven houses that she's doing a rent by the room. Now it's one lease together for the property. But basically, it's, her pricing is based on a rent by the room because it's college kids. And she's like, I kind of want to just get rid of it because I don't need the money right now. How many people would be in a spot where they're like, wow, I'm good. I don't need the money from renting out about 30 rooms through 7 houses. And so that shows the power of what you can do. I'm curious to learn a little bit, have you share a little bit more about the rental arbitrage. It's the topic that we've talked about just a little bit on the podcast here. Talk about that conversation that you had with the owner of that property in terms of making sure that you had the right permissions set up, making sure that you were being forthright with them, or at least just kind of sharing, here's the plan for it. Because for that landlord, they're getting guaranteed rent. They know that you're not going to just back out someday because you're making money off of it. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that conversation and how that developed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard about rental arbitrage. That's the hot thing for short-term rentals because you can do the same thing and do it as a short-term rental. But I like the concept of the long-term because I wanted the guaranteed income. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to have to guess, and I didn't want to do hospitality, which is doing something, dealing with customers every day. So the way I approached it was the same way. I found a rental. Again, it was on Craigslist. Found it on Craigslist. Called him up. And then I didn't tell him what I wanted to do yet. I just wanted to see the property. So I went and saw the property just to make sure it would fit my mold. I wanted to find something that didn't need a lot of work, that was in my budget, that it was laid out to where it would make sense to do room to room, because each room's got, you have to be able to lock the rooms, have their own keys. You need a common area, and the layout just can't be weird. Like some houses, you have to go through one bedroom to get to the other one. So I needed to see what it looked like. And it was 2 blocks from Wake Forest University. And to your point about the room to room, renting the whole house out on one lease, there was 2 houses next door doing that. And what they charge for a lease is incredible. But after I saw the property, I told him, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. I'd like to rent the property, but I need to do it in a commercial lease. I move around a lot, and I'm like, you can call and verify that, I've had tenants before. So if he wanted to talk to someone, luckily I had that. And I just told him straight up what I wanted to do. Hey, I'm going to rent this from you. I will pay you from my business, so you can verify my income from my job. And so that I will pay you regardless. But here's what I want to do. I'll take care of the house. If there's an issue, I take care of it. We had a water heater break, so I helped him replace it. That was a whole fiasco. We ended up hitting a pipe under the house, and we just got completely soaked in water. So like running outside to turn the main off, it was awful, but it was a good story. We built a relationship. He used to be a professor at Wake Forest, got into real estate investing, retired and just did real estate investing, was making more than being a professor. This guy's like a semi-hero of mine. He put his kid through Duke University in mid school, completely paid for from real estate. Still has tons of units, but he's older. He's pushing 70. So taking that management off of him really helped. And then I just told him, hey, I'll pay you. And then I'm going to rent the rooms out. I'll manage it all. I'll make sure the property stays in great shape. It will stay in better shape than if you just rent it out traditionally, because then you're having to deal with everything and you don't know the condition. I'm putting furniture and stuff in there too. I had a cleaner that would come regularly as well. I have gotten rid of that strategy though, because it wasn't cost effective and I didn't see a difference from having it to not having it. So I got rid of that. But then he said, sure. He checked my background. We signed a commercial lease. And then from there, I got furniture. And then I listed it on Facebook. I believe every single tenant came from Facebook, free. And then there's software, apartments.com, where you can run all the background checks, because you should probably do that before people are living with one another. And then it tracks, they can sign their lease digitally and it will collect all their rent online for free. I don't have to pay anything for this tool. They actually pay for all the credit reports and background checks. So it's all automated. And then when they would move in, I did ask him, hey, I recommend getting a keypad for your door that they can get in with. And then they have keys for their individual bedrooms. So when I first started, I was doing all this manually. I was driving up there to show and driving up there. Eventually I learned, hey, you need a keypad. I did a video walkthrough. I think I failed to mention this unit was an hour away from me. So it was not close. And then eventually they were all in there. You do need a roommate agreement, so everyone stays, abides by those rules. That's the one thing that is different. But then it was all filled, and I did it for 2 years. I made money, not a lot of money. There were some things I had to learn to do differently that I wish I would have done differently at that property. But it did make money, and, I learned a lot.
Yeah. And I think too, that's something that people don't realize when they think about getting into real estate, is they do think maybe it's a linear path, and they don't value the education that they're going to receive through that. So the good news is you made money. There's people that do flipping and lose money, or, have things that don't work out well and they end up losing money. but what you're gaining is the experience, and people are willing to invest money. I mean, you invested money in an MBA, and that helped prepare you, even though it wasn't directly related to real estate. It's critical thinking, it's networking, it's working through problems. And I think sometimes people in real estate don't value the educational component of what they're going to learn, because now you've picked up a few different things from a few different strategies, and that's going to help you hone in more on the strategy that you do want to use moving forward. So there is an educational component through the valuable lessons that you're learning by doing something like rental arbitrage.
And thanks to the rental arbitrage, when I went and did the strategy on my own, the most recent property I did with the room-to-room renting, I'm getting ready for tax season. So, you can write off your miles. And I was looking to see how often I went to the property last year. It runs so well now. I didn't go to the property not one time last year, not once. And those tenants have been there over a year. I don't hear a peep. The last thing I heard is there was a mouse. So I did pay for pest control, but I didn't have to go there. That's it. So once you get good enough, you can do these things, remotely, hours away. That one's also hour and a half away. Over time, you will learn how to run things in a complete system.
So talk a little bit about the decision of kind of being a landlord yourself versus hiring out. What advice would you have for people? You learned how to process people's credit and background checks. You talked about that a little bit. But yeah, talk about that piece of deciding to do it yourself versus deciding to hire somebody else.
Ooh. So for the apartment complex I have in Georgia, I wasn't going to attempt that one.
Right.
That one's 7 units, and we're doing full rehab of all the units. So I had to have help. There was no way I was managing that one on my own. So I will pay the management fee. For the ones that are closer, if I can get there in an hour, hour and a half, then I'll self-manage, because most of the things you don't have to go. So for example, people say, well, what about if the toilet goes out, or hot water heater stops working, or any number of items? I have a list of handymen that I can call who will go over there. Like a tree fell and was leaning on the neighbor's fence, and she was complaining because in South Carolina, it's so dumb. You're responsible if the tree falls onto their property. Maybe it's not dumb, but anyway, it fell. I'm responsible for it. In North Carolina, if it's on your property, you're responsible for it, even if it's your neighbor's tree. And so if you have the people that are the boots on the ground, then I can save the percentage I need for paying a manager. Like I said, I didn't have to go down there. They barely bother me. Why would I give up 10% to 15% a month to do nothing? And so the Georgia properties, a lot more management, I'll pay. When it's a 4-bedroom house, but only have 3 tenants there because of the rules. I'll mention that in a second. But I can manage it because of the systems, and it's one house, and I have people that help me, from the plumbers, electricians, and handymen. So I don't have to be there for any reason. And so that's what I would say. If you can do it with a system, then you do it. If it's close, you can also do it. Once you hit a certain number, you may need to outsource it, or if it's further apart. One thing I didn't mention about the rental arbitrage or doing room to room, you need to know your laws, because it's different based on the state and based on the area. So in Winston-Salem, for example, it was the same rule. You couldn't have more than 3 unrelated people living in a household. You can get in trouble for that. And it's different in Charlotte. So Charlotte is actually by square footage. And so I forget the numbers, but the rules are different. So you have to know the laws and the rules if you're subleasing, because you need to make sure it's in your contract. If you're doing rental arbitrage, you need to make sure, if you're doing room to room, how many people can be in that household. And then if you're doing rental arbitrage for short-term rentals, you definitely need to know the short-term rental rules and regulations in your area. Like Charleston and Savannah are super, super strict, but somewhere like Charlotte's really relaxed.
So yeah, I mean, obviously there's a knowledge piece there. And I think for people that are in real estate, like you know the rules, or you're going to learn the rules. There's going to be rules that you don't know, and you might learn them as you go, but better to do the due diligence on the front end. And I think for some people, it's like, if you're going to do this long term, follow the rules. I think sometimes people might have a mentality of like, I can try to skirt this or skirt that, or like there's some sort of technicality where maybe I could argue that. The reality is just follow the rules that you know, because if you're going to do it long enough, you're going to grow. And if you grow bigger, you're going to have a bigger target on your back. So you might as well just do things right out of the gate. I mean, there's some people, whether it's non-conforming this or don't have the right license, the rental license for that. It's like, just, it's different if you don't know, and now you know. But if you do know, just follow the rules, do the best you can. I think, there's a lot of bad landlords out there. So we want to be people that do things the right way. We want to be respectful, and follow those guidelines. So just figure it out and just follow them.
Exactly. Yep. Do it right. Just do it the right way. Keep your whole business down, because then all of your hard work, it was for nothing. You lose it all. So yeah, absolutely follow the laws. I'm glad I did, because a neighbor, when I was doing one of the properties, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, you're doing room to ripple you can have in the house." I was like, yeah, see, people know, especially this guy, some people know the rules. So if they catch you, they'll report you.
So yeah, talk a little bit about kind of what you're looking to do here with your HomeBuyer League, how you're looking to help people out.
Yeah. When I got into real estate full time as a lender and started really putting myself out there as a go-to for loans and information, I just started getting the same questions. How do I get into investing? How do I buy a house for the first time? What are the minimum down payments for these loan products? I needed somewhere to house all of the information, so I didn't have to spend 30 minutes re-explaining myself, to just house my information. What happened is I realized, as an investor for myself, I've looked at multiple areas across the country to invest in. I mean, recently I've been looking at Mexico to invest in, but it takes forever to try and research everything. It would be nice if the strategy I was looking for was broken down by location from someone who's a verified expert. So yes, you can go to YouTube, but you don't know the person listening to, you don't know the accolades. They may tell you, but is it true? And then depending on the forum you're on or the email you read, the advice you're getting is from somebody out in Texas in real estate telling you to go use this strategy when you live in North Carolina. The rules are different. The laws are different. It could be different in the city that you're in from another city in the same state. So it's a huge problem when it comes to researching and learning real estate quickly. And that, to me, is what scares people, because they do not have the answer. And it's so saturated with information, you don't know what strategy to listen to. Like kids today, I swear, it's always, I'm going to go wholesale. I had a kid this weekend want to buy a house, and I'm looking at his application. I was like, "Hey, I see you're self-employed. You're a business owner?" "Yeah, I filed my LLC on 2 weeks ago." I'm like, "Well, are you working?" "No, I live with my parents." "So you're trying to buy a house and get a loan?" "Yeah." He just had no idea. I'm like, "You need at least 2 years work history. There's nothing I can do unless you've got 25% down on a property. If you're going commercial, how much do you have in savings?" "I've got about 7,000. That's probably not going to cut it." So, for example, I'm partnering with a realtor who does short-term rentals to share their expertise on doing it in Uptown Charlotte. We're going to shoot a course and get it on the HomeBuyer League. So anyone who wants to do that can go watch the course and understand how the heck to do it. It's going to be free. The HomeBuyer League is also broken down by knowledge level. So we have A, B, and C leagues. So C would be for your beginners. A would be advanced. So you choose your level of expertise. I get so much stuff that's like, buy your first investment home, how to be a first-time home buyer. That's not useful to me. It's useful to other people, but you need to specify info. For me, I need stuff too. I'm trying to learn too. So that's what this league does. It's one expert who's curated, one strategy, whatever that may be, it could be even landscaping. We've got a flooring guy coming to teach people how to do flooring. So we're going to really go deep dive into everything you need to know. And then it's by location. So I'm excited to start sharing loads and loads of knowledge from experts all around the country in due time about how to do these strategies and build wealth with real estate.
Awesome. And how can people, that want to learn more about you, want to learn more about HomeBuyer League, how can they reach out?
Yes, thehomebuyerleague.com. We're constantly releasing new videos every single week and getting new people on board. If you want to reach me, it's Z Pittman at thehomebuyerleague.com. That's Z as in Zach, P as in Paul, I, 2 T's, MAN at thehomebuyerleague.com. And then I'm pretty much everywhere on social media, from LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. My handle is at Zach F Pitt, ZACHF as in Forest, PITT. You type that in and you can pretty much find me. I'm really out here. Like I said, I want to impact 8 million people directly, whether that's talking to me or providing a great place to rent, books one day or seminars one day. I'm on this mission to just lower this barrier to wealth building around the world. If you look at the percentages, most people just don't own. It's getting tougher to own. That's why it's more important now than ever.
Awesome. And what I love too, Zach, about your journey is you started simple and you started with things that people can do right away. You don't have to have 25% down payment on $1 million property to get started. It's just, hey, if you've got a house, start renting out the rooms. And if you've got a property that you see as a good opportunity, you can get into a lease and be able to lease out the room. And so those strategies are possible for lots of people without having a lot of capital right out of the gate. And so that's a great way to build momentum, and you can move on to the 7-unit properties down the road. But you can start out with finding and identifying a good property and do a rent by the room models. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zach, for coming on. Congratulations again on the baby. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what you continue to do in the future and how your business grows.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me.